One, two, three. This is Dr. Alex Avila, and this is Love University, and we're back. Every week we talk about how to love yourself, others, and higher nature. I'm a psychologist, author, and speaker. And every week we bring you something new to help you transform your life, whether it's your relationships, whether it's your self-esteem, or your success. And we've been having a lot of great guests recently over the summer session. And we have one today that I'm really very happy to have on board. This is Gal Szekely, who with his wife, Liron, have a special love center, a couple center for a relationship that's called Love That Lasts. And Gal is a very interesting guy. He left a successful career in high-tech management to pursue a career in psychology. And he has 2 master's degrees in psychology. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And he blends the East and West psychology, which we really want to talk about. Interestingly enough, he trains with high-tech companies. He's an expert contributor at various organizations and publications, Tango. His articles have been featured on Psych Central, Huffington Post, and he does workshops like Love Made Simple. Gal, welcome aboard to Love University.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you have an extensive resume, very fascinating. And you left a career in high tech to do psychology. Why did you leave money for love? How did that work?
Yeah, that's always a big deal, actually, because when I left my high-tech job, first, actually, I left to become a management consultant. So I actually had 2 career transitions.
Yes.
From a really early age, around 13, I knew that I wanted to learn about personal growth.
Yes.
And be able to help others. And I didn't know what form it will take.
Right.
So life led me to the high-tech career, but I felt not satisfied. And so at a certain point, I did a move towards management consulting, which was half business and half psychology. But even that didn't feel like satisfying enough. So at a certain point, I left that and became a counselor.
I see. So what do you want? Want more money or love?
I prefer to feel fulfilled.
Ah, okay.
You know? And I think that's what runs my life. Where it's like, what is more fulfilling for me?
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a combination of the two. People have different passions or interests, but feeling fulfilled, I like that. Now, one thing that's very interesting, Gal, is that you're in business apparently with your wife, who is also your business partner. And I'm kind of curious, how does having a business partner affect you as a love partner? And how does a love partner affect you as a business partner? There is a technology entrepreneur named Michael Lazzaro who founded a company called Buddy Media with his wife. And he had an article that says, "Why I Have Sex with My Co-Founder." He says that it actually makes a business better when you have a loving relationship. What's been your experience in that?
Well, I agree that there's more trust, but I also think that it requires actually from the couple to have very high level of relationship skills.
Yes.
Because one track can affect the other. So if you're arguing over like something in the business of how to do something,
yes,
it can affect your personal relationship.
Yes.
And vice versa. And so if that's a coworker, right, and then you go home, you're like, okay, I don't have to deal with them. But if it's your partner, you always have to deal with them.
Yeah. And then she says at night, "Why don't you take out the garbage?" And she really means, "How come you didn't pay me more money in the business or something?"
Exactly.
So I can see that it can be a tricky thing, but I guess it can be rewarding too, right? Because you're a teamwork, you're working together for a common purpose and goal. It's higher than yourself.
It's very rewarding in that way because it's like it feels like we're both aligned on a vision and things that we're really passionate about, and so we can share that with each other. You know, talk about it, be excited about it, and we're very involved then in each other's ideas and
definitely. Because I talk about in relationships the idea that a couple, if they have a higher purpose, for example, creating light in the world, something positive, maybe a business or a mission that can actually raise a relationship, can elevate them because they have something that's more powerful than just being together, whether it's companionship or sex or whatever it is. They have something that's greater. The other thing is I want to ask you, Gal, is you're an Israeli, I understand, from Israel originally?
Yes.
And you're also a male. I haven't heard too many Israeli males that are therapists or counselors. Is that a common profession in your culture?
It's hard for me to answer that question. I mean, there are definitely psychologists and psychotherapists in Israel.
Yes.
On the other side, I think there is something about the Israeli culture that tends to be a little bit more protected, more defended.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's a mix of both.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a Latin culture, and the so-called sensitive male isn't always appreciated as much. It's a little more of a macho culture sometimes. So, being a therapist, dealing with feelings is something that is not as common.
Right.
But in your case, apparently you're doing a good job, right? You're working with your wife in the center. The other thing is, Gal, you talked about some interesting therapy modalities here. Something called Hakomi, pact, and somatic attachment. Can you break those down for us in simple terms? What does Hakomi mean?
Yeah, so let me give the overall, like what connects all of this, and then if you want, I can talk about each one of those approaches together.
Yes.
So what interests me, the way I really like to work is through using an experiential type of work, which combines the body and the mind. And I'll explain for a moment what that means.
Sure.
It's like in every moment we have an experience, and that experience is affecting not just how we think, it's also how we feel, and also how we're experiencing something in our body. And then sometimes, actually, if we pay attention to what's happening in our body, like what sensations, contractions, heat, cold, whatever's happening inside of us, it's actually even more of a direct way to understand our unconscious mind, because the body reacts quickly and sometimes much more fast than what our conscious mind is able to grasp. And so when you learn how to use those tools, like how to help yourself and clients through doing this kind of experiential stuff, and through working, through doing different exercises, or through really paying attention to the body and the body cues, a lot of time you get a lot of information and things becomes very real, very alive.
Interesting. Yeah, I've worked with, for example, martial arts, Tai Chi and Aikido, and even yoga, movements like that can actually, especially for trauma victims, can help them understand how the trauma can get caught in their body.
Exactly.
So they learn how to work with that. Now let's break it down. So what is Hakomi? That sounds like a Japanese term. I know you work with the East as well, Eastern philosophy or therapies. What does that mean, Hakomi?
Yeah, so Hakomi is actually a therapy method that was created in the West, created here in the United States in the 70s and 80s. But it combines mindfulness, which comes from Buddhist meditation. Yes. So it combines the ability to be aware of yourself and the skills of mindfulness, together with more kind of body-based, what's called the somatic-based approaches to therapy. So there's a whole history of using the body-mind in psychology, and so that brought together like kind of Gestalt work and like bioenergetics, so early stuff that has to do with body-mind connection, together with mindfulness, meditation, and those skills together.
I see. Okay. And then how about PACT? PACT is your acronym for that.
Yeah, PACT is a psychobiological approach to couples therapy. is a approach that created by a guy named Ted Nutkin, actually from your area, I think, from Los Angeles.
Yes.
Also emphasize, it's specifically about working with couples, but also emphasizes kind of moment-to-moment interaction and the cues that we give each other in the body, and also how do we learn to kind of read each other and work better with each other as a couple.
I see. And then somatic attachment, I think you also mentioned that one.
Yeah, so somatic, it's not one method, but it's just the whole approach of paying attention to the body and working with the body. And I actually even use, with some clients in my work, I use touch, in order to really get a direct access to the body. And attachment is like the angle that, a lot of our psychological issues comes from the need to feel really securely connected to someone, and especially when it comes to relationship. And then the history that we have with the connection we had with our parents affects the kind of like the baseline of like how do we feel secure in the world, how do we feel with connection with people. So looking at like this value of relationship, and as it comes to our psychological growth and of course to our love life.
Yeah, very interesting. The attachment, I think that's something you talk about. What would you say is the biggest problem in relationships today, Gal? Because I mentioned in your website, you talk about initially you guys struggled in your marriage because you were married to your work. Apparently, you're working a lot. Is that a problem in relationships, or what would you say is the big problem?
No, I don't think that's the real problem. The number one the problem that couples complain about is communication issues. They're saying basically, we try to talk about things, we have different perspective about something. We try to talk about something and we don't succeed in talking. We end up getting stuck with one another. We end up getting more frustrated and more distant than one another. Yes. And so that's what couples complain about. Now, if you try to break it down to like what's underneath that and what's causing that, a lot of the time what happens is that every couple has some kind of a pattern, and when they try to communicate, because they do it from their own perspective and from their own personality, without meaning to do it, they push some kind of sensitive buttons in the other person, something that they're sensitive around, which causes an emotional reaction that it's usually negative, which then cause the first person to have a negative emotional reaction. So there becomes kind of a feedback loop between them of a negative emotional reaction.
Yeah, and I think you do talk about the dysfunctional ways that couples interact, and you talk about attack, withdraw, and withdraw. Mm-hmm. And it seems like you're saying with attack, that there's like an inner trigger, something that's underlying the issue. For example, you say, when you don't do the dishes, there's something inside that makes me mad. Maybe you're not paying me attention or something like that. So how does that work? How does attack work in a couple?
Well, first to understand that, what you said about the dishes is really important. It's important to understand that usually what we fight about is not the real issue.
Yes.
So we talk about the dishes, but really there's some kind of underlying emotional need underneath that. For example, you do the dishes. For me, it symbolizes that you have my back, that you support me. And so if you don't do that, I end up feeling as if you don't support me. And that's what really hurts me. It's not the fact that you did or did not do the dishes. It's really important to differentiate that, because a lot of couples don't understand that difference. They try to negotiate and compromise about the dishes, and they miss the real fact, which is like, I want to feel supported. So there's so many different ways in which I can feel supported, and the dishes will be just one of them.
Now, is that a gender difference? Are we talking about do the dishes? Are we saying the female to male? Or is there something that a male would say to the wife that would be an underlying issue for him?
Well, I think it's not a male or female issue because, again, the example of the dishes could be like any kind of example. You can fight over like how to educate the kids. You can fight over like, whether you're late or not. You can fight over like many, many different things.
Right. But
really what's going on is like you're looking to feel something from your partner. You're looking to fulfill certain needs. And then each person in general is more sensitive around certain needs rather than others. Like for one person, it could be more like I'm sensitive to feel like, am I a priority for you? Like, do you think about me? And the other one was more like, do you feel me? Do you understand me? Do you see me? For someone else, is like, do you appreciate me? Do you value me? So those are some of the underlying stuff. And so the dishes or things like that become just a symbol. So, and that's true for both men and women.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And those are what you call attack, where I guess one of them begins it, the other one escalates it. We also say there's one called attack and withdraw, also known as the toxic dance. So I would imagine one person attacks, the other withdraws. And research does show that males often, because they have a higher physiological arousal, they actually tend to withdraw more in conflicts, whereas females like to talk more about it. So a man may have higher blood pressure and so forth, and he goes to the gym or takes off. And also we have introvert extroverts. I wrote a book called Love Types that talks about Myers-Briggs personalities. And introverts often want to go within. They want to withdraw. So what do you do in that situation where it's either a gender issue or it could be the personality style where one withdraws and one attacks? Is that healthy or unhealthy, do you think?
Well, it's definitely it's like one example of like being stuck in that like feedback loop or that negative cycle. Like, the attack person is wanting something. Yes. And so they're going after the other person. They're saying like, you did this wrong, or you have to do this. And so they come up with some kind of blame or criticism. Right. Which makes the other person, the withdrawal person, say like, hey, this is too much, why you're attacking me, and I want to get away from it. And they withdraw the conversation. Right. But they end up in a loop, because the more they withdraw, the more the other person is trying to get after them and attack them. And then the more the person attacks, the more the other one withdraws.
But is it healthy, Gal, sometimes to take what's called a timeout in relationships when things get escalated? They can go shopping or work out, and then come back when they're more relaxed or calm. Is that a good solution, do you think? Or do you think they should just hash it out and fight it out to the death?
Yeah, it is really important to do that, because what happens when we're in a fight is that we get too emotional. And in that point, like our ability, like physiologically, like, in our brain, our ability to empathize and our ability to understand each other's perspective, it really goes really down. And so basically the conversation is just not going to get productive. Both people are just going to try to argue their point of view and won't hear the other person. So learning to kind of notice your own feelings and how hard, if you're too stressed, to learn how to lower it, it's a really important skill.
Yeah, I think of it in a military way. Sometimes you need to retreat and withdraw to fight another day, because otherwise, if you're overwhelmed, you might be killed in battle or something. So I can see that, sometimes you got to go back. And the other one is, you mentioned withdraw. So I'm picturing, I think you call it conflict avoidant. Couples that don't want to talk about things, and they kind of read their internet by themselves and all that kind of stuff. Now, is that also healthy and unhealthy? How do you see that kind of marriage, the withdraw couple?
So all of those patterns, it depends on how strong they are. Every couple exhibits some of those patterns. If you get rigid about it, then it starts to feel unhealthy. And if you don't know how to resolve them, like how to actually talk in a way that gets you closer, it becomes unhealthy. Now, the conflict avoidant couple, it's interesting because usually people don't, from the outside, most of the time, people see them as a great couple because they always seem pleasant to one another. They never fight. But actually, inside of their relationship, a lot of time, there's going to be a lot of distance, and it would feel kind of stale. Like they don't feel so close. And the reason for that is that actually a lot of the time people then don't bring up stuff. So if the attack couple is people that always bring up stuff and they end up in a heated debate about it, the withdraw couple are a couple that actually tend to avoid conflict, so they don't bring up stuff. But if you don't bring up stuff, you also don't speak up about what's important to you. And then you end up feeling a little bit more distant from your partner because you haven't expressed something that you want or don't want.
That makes sense. And also we have what's called the empty marriages, where they're together for the sake of the kids or religious or economic reasons. And, they don't make love, they don't really communicate or have intimacy, but they're just there. They're just kind of like two logs sitting there. Now, you do mention something about a power question, kind of a solution for this problem. You ask, what do I need to really feel good in my relationship? Why is it important for them to ask that power question?
Because especially for couples and more in a conflict avoidant or withdrawal, they're basically, as I was saying, they're not expressing what they really want or what they really need, because they're thinking, if I stand up for myself, I might disrupt the connection. It might be hard or overwhelming to talk about things if we disagree. So I'd rather just keep it to myself. But that, again, creates distance. So the question they have to ask yourself, like, what is really important to me? What do I want? Like, what do I want more of, or what do I want less of, or what do you want different? And to be able to express that and kind of take the risk that maybe your partner is not going to immediately say yes to it. But then you feel more alive.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's taking a little risk, but the rewards are very great. And also, Gal, you talk about attachment styles. And this is very fascinating. They've done a lot of studies on childhood attachment, how it affects adult relationships. And the anxious attachment is apparently a person that wants to be too close to the other person, and they can be overly possessive and maybe jealous and needy, they call it. And you said they're sensitive to small cues of threat in the relationship. So how does that work when you have an anxious kind of person in attachment?
The way I like to explain attachment, is looking at some basic principles of what we're looking for in a relationship. I think that there's two sides to a relationship that all of us are looking for. Yes. One is we look for connection, which means like feeling loved, feeling special, feeling that someone really cares about us.
Right.
The second one is autonomy, which means like we want to be ourselves. We want to be our unique self. We want to express ourselves and just be independent also. And so when you look at the attachment styles, in the research, they're basically talking about, there's healthy ways to have connection and autonomy, and there's like less healthy ways to do that.
Right.
So when we talk about anxious attachment, it's someone who's preoccupied with a connection. Like they want connection, but they don't also really trust that the connection is going to be there. So they end up being really preoccupied. They keep checking all the time. Do you love me? Do you not love me? Do you love me now? Do you not love me now? Oh, you did this. It means like you don't care about me. And so because of that anxiety of like, are we connected or not? They end up kind of searching for all the cues in which you don't really care about them. And they end up trying to put pressure on the other person to prove to them that they love them, which of course, doesn't work well for the other person.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But Gal, there's also something that's kind of counterintuitive here, and maybe you can kind of shed a light on this idea. Because, usually when we think of anxious attachment, we think of someone who's weak, needy, or clingy. But some research shows that actually dependence is natural and can be healthy. In some ways, in our society, in the U.S., for example, we tend to stigmatize dependence. We're more independent. In other cultures, it's more collective. So being dependent is a healthy thing. And, when children feel safe, they don't cling to their mothers because they can play with their toys. They feel comfortable. So what do you think of that aspect? Is there a neediness that can be healthy, or a desire for dependence that can be okay?
Yeah, of course. I mean, coming back to what I was saying, that it's natural to have both connection and autonomy and to want both of them in a relationship.
Yes.
Actually, the research is showing that we get needy because like usually in our childhood that need wasn't provided, so we didn't feel secure about it. Like if that need was provided, like if you always knew you can rely and depend on your parents, the child develops like an internal security in them, and so they become less preoccupied with connection. We actually are preoccupied with connection, or we get needy, quote unquote, is when we don't feel like it's reliable.
Yes, I see that. And then of course there's what's called the avoidant, or someone that's uncomfortable being too close, so they might become workaholics, alcoholics, sexaholics, or they kind of separate themselves from their partner. And that's about 25%, I think you mentioned, in the population. So how about the avoidant people? What is their situation?
Yeah, so the avoidant are people basically that are, again, like the autonomy side of the spectrum. The healthy side of it is developing, someone who could be self-reliant, someone who could be like know who they are, someone who goes to become their unique self. The less healthy of it is more the avoidant attachment, which means like someone who has to push people away in order to feel themselves, or is afraid of intrusion from other people, or is instead of just being independent, they become kind of more cut off emotionally or cut off from other people. So that's the less healthy side of it. And
Yes.
just like the anxious is like the less healthy side of connection.
Exactly. Now, the other thing, Gal, is, something that is also counterintuitive. Tell me what you think of this idea. Because we often talk about loving yourself first so you can find someone that can love you as well. But some research shows that actually it can be the other way around. If you find someone that can love you, maybe a secure partner, if you're avoidant, actually that can help you heal some of your wounds, and you can actually raise yourself psychologically. What do you think of that idea? That actually it can work in reverse. With a secure partner, you can actually heal some of your wounds. Let's say you're anxious or avoidant. Do you think that can work?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both important. Like, if everybody would just wait until they fully love themselves, I think no one would get married.
That's a good point. I like that.
Because that could take a really long time.
Yes.
On the other hand, if like you have a lot of trouble with yourself, then it's going to be hard for you to be in a relationship and to accept love. So it's like you need some level of it, and you need to continue to work on it. And the same thing is true from the other side that you mentioned. Like if you are in a good relationship and you know how to work well with your partner, there's a way in which you're both helping each other grow.
Yes.
And so you're both helping heal and transform each other.
Great. So you kind of agree with what I'm thinking, because some people don't think that. They think that, you have to love yourself first no matter what, and then eventually go out and meet people. But you said that could be a problem, no? Because it might take you a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, being fully accepting yourself is like, it's actually a high degree of personal growth.
Yes.
So it's not that common,
Yeah. Self-actualization, right? Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So you'd have to be at the top of the triangle, perhaps, to get to that point.
Right.
But hopefully we're working toward that. And Gal, you also talk about the myths that can destroy marriage. You talk about looking for the perfect lover or the perfect love. And there's something called the destiny marriage you may have heard about, where people say we're destined to be together, but if it doesn't work out, we're not destined to be together. And also what we call growth marriages, where they think about working toward improving themselves. And those marriages often do better because it's not just an all or nothing thing. They can see themselves growing. So how do you picture those situations? Is that a problem for people, the perfect love or the perfect marriage?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a cultural myth, especially in the United States, around the soulmate.
The soulmate, yes.
Like, I have to find the right person, the one person, and they're going to be exact puzzle piece to me, and they'll complete me. Mm-hmm. And while I think it's important to find someone you love and someone that you really admire and that you have a really good connection, but putting such a high value on it and such a high myth on it makes it as like, it's like the expectation is so high in finding the right person, and then you can keep, you're dating people and you keep saying like, well, this part of them I don't like, so they're probably not my soulmate, and so you end up, disqualifying everybody.
Exactly. They snore too much, or whatever. They do something I don't like.
And that's especially true in the age of like that you do app dating, in which you have so many options, and so like you keep dismissing people over so many things because you have a lot of options.
Yeah, I'm looking for a green eye and blue-eyed person with a little bit of pink inside the eye, so that's going to be hard to find, right? So
the other problem that is destructive about this myth of the soulmate is that then people think that if I found the right person, then then we're in love, and then we should just live happily ever after, and it should be easy. And then so if trouble shows up and we have some conflict, we have some disagreement, we have some challenges, then it means that I'm just not with the right person. And they don't understand that any relationship goes through challenges and conflict, and it's just a natural growth. And so instead of working on it, they end up saying like, okay, I just need to replace and find the right person. It's an evidence that I haven't found the right person.
Yeah, again, going back to the destiny marriage versus the growth marriage. With growth marriages, they want to improve. I wrote a book, Love Types and Guy Types, on compatibility styles. I mean, I do use the word soulmate, but I use it in a different context. I say compatibility is a deep understanding of another, a deep appreciation of their differences and also similarities. So it's kind of a compatibility and complementary style. So it's based on personality. Right. And again, you got to work toward it. I think that's an important thing. And Gal, you also talk about, now you mentioned communication is one of the most important things. And in your materials, you talk about, I think you said the cold versus the hot communicator. And the cold one is the one that kind of wants to think it over. I think of it as like an introvert energy personality that wants to, think about it and then come back. The extrovert, the other person wants to talk. They're the hot person. And they want to hash it out. So what if you have a hot versus a cold in a couple? Are we going to have some problems here?
Right. I mean, that actually relates back to the styles that we talked about like kind of more the attack withdrawal.
Yes.
right? So the person who's hot, they're the one who's going to come forward and want a lot of communication about it and want it quickly.
Right.
And want to resolve. Usually they want to resolve things really quickly because they feel a certain anxiety of like, if we're not connected right now and we have an issue between us, they experience certain anxiety.
Yes.
And their way of trying to resolve the anxiety is to go to the other person and say, okay, I need to talk to you. And once we are okay together, then I'll be okay. The cold person is more the cold person that tends to withdraw. Their way of doing it is first we have to reduce conflict. For them, too much emotions is actually difficult.
Yes.
And for them to reduce that, instead of going to the other person, they're going towards themselves. They need space. They're saying, in order for me to process my own feelings, to understand what's going on, and to feel more at balance,
Right.
I have to go and be on my own. And so if those two styles meet, which is actually very often, that happens between couples, you get to the kind of more attack withdrawal or pursue withdrawal dynamic. And so the key is, of course, learning to understand and value each one's styles and understanding not one of them is better than the other. It's like you have to work with each other's style.
Exactly. And I do talk about that in the books I write, the love types. You can have, for example, the extroverted feeler who really wants to communicate their feelings. They want to get it out there. Let's talk about it. Or the introverted thinker is the person that's kind of more logical, but also internal. So they want to process it and they'll say, well, I'll email you tomorrow my ideas. I'll figure it out. And the extrovert says, no, tell me right now. I want to figure this out right now. And I think you said you have the idea of, I called you last night. I needed you. So there's an underlying, they didn't call back. So there's an underlying feeling of maybe abandonment or something like that. So these are the hot buttons you're talking about that people have.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look back to those two principles of connection and autonomy, there are actually two fears that are related to that. And so that when the connection is disrupted, or someone who's more on the connection side, their fear is that they're being rejected or abandoned.
Yes.
So the urgency in connecting is that because they don't want to feel rejected or abandoned. The person on the autonomy side, usually the fear is more about feeling like I'm not good enough, like feeling like you're intruding me, intruding on my space, or you're taking something away from me because you're thinking that I'm not good enough. And so that's what they're going to be experiencing a lot of time in their relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And, I kind of like when you talk about solutions here, because obviously, you can identify the problem, but what's the solution? And you say it's good to take one step toward each other, which you call a win-win. For example, the introvert or the cool person might say, is it okay if I take a break and then come back and talk to you? So kind of asking for a little bit of permission, perhaps, to, pick it up at another time. And also the other person, the hot person, can give the other person a little more space. Why do you think that works, this kind of idea of, taking steps toward each other?
Yeah, so win-win means basically that you take both needs into account. And again, I talked about there's the things you fight about, and then there's a real need, right? And
yes.
So if you recognize what the real need, you learn that a lot of time you can satisfy both needs at the same time. And so that's a great example. If the heated debate starts to happen, and the more cold person feel like this is too much for me, I need to withdraw. If they just shut down the conversation or walk away,
yes.
they're satisfying their need, but not their partner's need, which the partner's need for connection, right?
Right.
And so in order to honor both, if they come to their partner and say, listen, I know we need to talk about it, and it's really important for me that we talk about it, but right now it's really hard for me. I need to cool off a little bit, and I'll be able to do it better with you. Then they're both taking space like what they need, but they're also responding to the other person's need by recognizing the connection and telling them, I'm going to come back to the conversation, and this conversation is important to me. And so both needs are being met at that time, and both partners feel closer to each other.
So you think, is it good to ask a question to say, is it okay if I take a break and come back? Is that a good way to do it? Or what do you think is a good way to do it like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think working together with your partner. I mean, it's the first time you do it. I mean, it's probably a lot of times better to just have this conversation even outside of an argument and just saying hey, for my style,
yes.
A lot of time when we fight, I need a bit of a break. So is that okay if we take the break? So not kind of have an agreement before you're in a fight.
Yes.
About how to do it, and so it's not a surprise, right? And so a moment like that comes in a fight, your partner already knows why you're doing this. Right. Yeah,
and I like the phrase "is it okay?" because you're kind of asking for their accord. You want them to be on board as well. It's not just something you're doing by yourself. Like you said, take off and go to Mexico for 2 days or something. You're actually going to be there for them, but you want to take a little time to think. And
right.
But how about the other person? Now, what do they get in exchange? Let's say the so-called extrovert or hot person wants an immediate conversation. What would be their benefit here? What can they get? Can they have the other person agree to talk to them sometimes more urgently?
Yeah, I mean, first, first they're getting from their partner that it's what they need to get is that it's important for their partner to talk about it, and they're going to come back, right?
Yes.
And so it's really important for the partner who's taking time out or is taking time away to really be responsible for that, and then be the one who's initiating, right?
Yes.
And so if they initiate, the person who's looking, or the hot person, the person who's looking for connection, will feel really good about it, because for them that's a signal that you really care. Now, what they can do also, by the way, on their own, is when they want to talk about something, they can go to the other person who's on the cold person and tell them more like, I want to talk about something. When would be a good time to do it?
Yes.
Because that's going to be their way of making sure that the other person is ready for it and they're not surprising, and then they're going to be more available for that conversation.
Yeah, I think you also use the term structured conversation. You said when you're heated to each other, one of them can say, right now I want to listen to what you have to say so I can understand, instead of talking over each other. So is that also a good way to do it, like structuring conversations? But then again, what if they're really mad at each other? Nobody wants to structure it when they're mad. So how do they get logical about this?
Right. Yeah, so sometimes the way to get out of troubles in communication is not to expect to do it when you're really hot, because people they get caught in it and they get caught in their emotions and then don't do the conversation well.
Right.
But then when they can start learning how to do it, and they can start practicing when they're cold, actually. So if we fought last night and then we took a break, and then now it's like the next day and I had time to think about it.
Right.
Now I can come back to the conversation again and do it more structured, and then I'm making more sure that we both hear each other. And then because it's about the pattern and not just about the details, if we learn how to understand the pattern between us, then we're resolving not just last night conversation, we're resolving like many different conversations at the same time.
And what do you think of like making love? Some couples think of making love as a way to resolve conflict, and some people are angry and they don't want to make love. So is that an individual thing, or how does that work with couples?
Yeah, I think it is an individual preference. For some people, fighting in anger is really, really hard for them, and so they don't feel very close to their partner after it, and they don't want to make, the make-up sex. They don't want to do it. Other people, for them, expression of anger is actually a release.
Yes.
Like I was angry at you, I got it out, and now I feel fine, and so I'm happy. I'm actually feeling close to you because I got something that was on my chest. I got it out.
Yeah. Grumpy sex, they call it. Grumpy or angry sex, I guess they call it, right? It comes out. But they feel better, I guess. So it depends on the couple's style.
Yeah.
And you also talk about being stuck in arguments, stuck in the small stuff. But you also say that the fighting is good. Why is fighting good?
Yeah, so John Gottman, who is a really important researcher in the field of couples therapy, I've done a lot of research on couples fighting, and he looked at couples who've been together for many, many years and still report that they're very happy. And he found that there's no difference in the amount of fighting that they do compared to couples who are really distressed. The difference is how they fight. So it's not the fact that they fight, but it's how they fight.
Right.
When you fight nasty, you end up feeling really bad. When you fight in a way that is constructive, in a way that you end up understanding each other, that actually makes you closer. And so that's what's important, is like learning how to fight.
Right. I think he does research on the tone, the nonverbals. And you say, be in tune with people's tone of voice. And ask your partner, are you angry with me? Even though they didn't say anything angry, but maybe they say hello, but in an angry way. Why is it important to be in tune to their tone of voice?
So I think it's really important. That's why I pay attention so much to the body and the body-mind connection in my work.
Right.
Is because the signals that we give with our nonverbal communication with our body is actually way more powerful than what we say. Yes. It's very easy to show that, just like the example you gave. Like if I tell you, of course I love you. You don't feel loved because my nonverbal just trumped my verbal.
That's a good point,
right?
yeah. It's like the one I do you some harm, but it sounds like their voice is not the same way, right? Then they're
exactly. You hear like you're angry at me, even though I'm saying I love you, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so the point is that, if the language of love, actually, the language of connection or attachment, has to do more with nonverbal than verbal. So it has to do with things like eye contact, tone of voice, distance or proximity, like how close do I sit towards you, my touch, like how much do I touch you. And so all of those things are actually important in a relationship, and most couples kind of don't understand that that's part of their problem. Like if one partner cannot, sometimes don't understand, like, why did you get so upset at me? I didn't say anything, I didn't do anything. But maybe they didn't recognize that their tone of voice was different, or they were, the other person was trying to make eye contact with them and kind of see what's going on, and they were turning away. And so those things are very important messages that we're giving, and a lot of time we don't know we're giving those messages.
Right. I heard that, I don't know, in Israeli culture that you're more touch-oriented. Is that correct? Do you guys have more of the physical affection?
Yeah, it's a warmer type of culture and touch, and proximity is more,
Yes.
I think the funny thing, if you look at it, is like how people stand in line in the United States. The grocery store, and there's like such a distance between
Right.
people. In
Yes.
the beginning of my time here, I didn't even understand that that's a line. I thought they're shopping.
Yeah, they might get mad at you that you're trying to push them or something if you get too close.
Exactly.
They don't know what's
And
going on.
in Israel, it's like it will be hard to actually recognize a line. People are so close to each other.
Wow,
I don't
interesting.
know if it's a line or not.
Interesting. So you better take a good shower every day, right? Otherwise, Also, I think the thing of finding positive things to say to your partner, there's like a ratio that you should say 3 to 5 positives for every one negative.
Yeah.
Because many times people do the opposite, right? They find, you're a lousy lover, you're a lousy parent, you're a lousy this, a lousy that, but you make good enchiladas. But obviously that's not going to make you feel very good. But if you reverse it and say, you're a great lover, a great parent, a great husband or wife, but you're a little bit messy around the house, that's a whole different mindset, right? Because you're bringing the positives in.
Yeah. It's important to understand that our brain is designed to pay attention to what's wrong more than to what's right. Like our brain is designed to survive, and if you need to survive, you need to look like, is there danger? You don't need to look at, you're not looking for like what's working well. Right. And so we all tend to look at our all of our situation, especially our partner, with like what we don't like. Yes. And so we end up not mentioning enough what we do like and what we do appreciate. And of course, what makes our partners feel good and more connected to us is actually if we tell them what is working rather than what's not working.
Yeah, it's almost like our default mechanism is negativity. We kind of fall back into, you didn't do this right, and so forth. But I think Gottman also says we need to build up a resource bank of positivity, positive feelings over time, kind of like a bank, right? And then you can withdraw the positive stuff. And the other thing you say that's interesting is you talk about how to improve your relationship with micro connections, like little connections, a little kiss or a smile or a little touch, when you see them and when they go. Why is that so important to have those little connections on a daily basis?
Yeah. And so because your partner is really important to you, like our response from our partner is really important to us, way more than anyone else.
Yes.
And so in somewhere in the back of our mind, even if we don't think about it consciously, there's always that question of like, are we good? Do you still love me?
Yes.
Do you care about me?
Right.
Am I important to you? And so a lot of time when couples have been together for a while and they go into the routine, they stop doing things that they did in the beginning, like the smile to each other, the hug, the kiss. So what ends up happening is that question in the back of our brain, like, do you still care about me? Do you still love me? Like the answer that we get, again, very unconsciously, but the answer we get, like, maybe not. So those small things, if you on a daily basis continue to reinforce them, is like you're relaxing that part of the brain that says like, yeah, of course I love you. Here I am. I care about you. And so both people feel closer and more relaxed in themselves.
Yeah, and I can see how males, typically haven't been into therapy. We do have sensitive males that listen to our show, but I can see that it can impact a male economically in their career without realizing it. When their wife is maybe a little bit more cooler or negative, and also it can impact the wife as well. She might not be able to blossom in her life or her career, or as a mother. Do you feel that is an issue as well? Like people, it may affect them in many different ways in their life when they're not really having the loving feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like your romantic relationship has a huge effect on your quality of life and how you feel. And so if things are at home not working well, it's going to affect your overall mood, which is going to affect your job and, your relationship with friends or kids and everything.
Right. Economically, I imagine, and everything else, right? The way you can succeed. Well, Gal, this has been a great time together, great lecture, co-professors here. And we learned a lot. You seem like you're very analytical and very, kind of knowledgeable about many areas in love and science. And is there anything you're working on now that you'd like to tell us about? I know you do workshops, you do other stuff and counseling. What are some of the things you're doing right now that are exciting you in your work?
Yeah. So we actually have developed, developed recently our workshop that we offer, and we have more of a variety of them. And one that is coming up that I'm really excited about, it's called the magic of intimacy. The question that a lot of people have, so when couples have trouble in communication and they're in trouble and in challenge, everybody understands that that's a problem there. But what less people understand is like, okay, when we've been together for a while and then we're not that connected, like we just don't, it's just kind of feel like a routine. Yeah, I know you, but I don't feel excited. Yes. What makes that excitement? How to bring that excitement back? I think that's less obvious for most people.
I see. Yeah, exactly. I think there was a song called "How to Bring the Sexy Back," if I recall. So how to bring the sexy and the romance back into their love.
Exactly. And so this new workshop that we've been putting out to get my wife and I together,
Yes.
the magic of intimacy, really looks at that and looks at that not from an intellectual kind of like theoretical aspect, but more from like
Right.
here's some practical exercises that you can do.
Yes.
And we break it down to 4 different types. We're saying that actually intimacy and connection have 4 different types of them, and we teach each one of those types and what are the skills for each one of those types. And so
Wow.
that's something I've been really excited
I see.
about.
So one of the types, for example?
And so the first type is called security connection. So that's the feeling that you can really depend on your partner, that they're there.
Yes.
Like the feeling that you give to your partner, I'm solid, I have your back. Whenever you need me, I'm around here, and I'm going to respond to you.
I see where you're saying.
That's the first one. The second one is more of a heartfelt connection, which is more
Right.
about like, do you really get the other person? Do you feel what's going on for them? Are you interested? Like, can you feel them in the inside of you?
Yes.
Right?
I like that. It's powerful. Well, it's been wonderful to have you here, Gal, on the show. Where can we hear more? By the way, are these workshops only in the Bay Area, or do you do telecommunications, or how do you guys do this stuff?
The workshops themselves are only in the Bay Area, yeah. But in terms of counseling, we also do that online through Skype or through kind of like video conferencing, basically.
Okay. Perfect.
So we can reach more people. And we're hoping to expand it. Eventually, those workshops will be also outside.
Yeah,
of
why
the
don't you come to Southern California? Maybe we can work together or something on some workshop or seminars
That could be an idea.
and do something fun down here. Where can people get a hold of you and learn more about you?
So our website is called thecouplescenter.org. So
Yes.
thecouplescenter.org. And then our phone number is 415-322-0417. And, you have someone there that can explain about all of our stuff.
That's wonderful. So, Gal, it's been a wonderful pleasure having you today on the show.
Thank you very much.
We'd love to have you. Yeah, we'd love to have you back in some time and get an update here, and figure out how to have great relationships, right? How to have more love in our life, because that's really what makes life worthwhile, and that's a wonderful thing. So again, this is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and anticipate you've learned something valuable today with our great guest, Gal, and his secrets of love and compatibility. So until next time, please put away your laptops, your notebooks, your pens and papers. Love University is now in recess. And remember, if you want to reach us, you can reach us at lovetype4u@aol.com, LOVETYPE, the number 4, letter U at AOL. Website is loveuniversity.love. You can reach us at 310-226-8090. Until next time, class is now recessed.